1, 2, 1, 2.
A little more.
1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay. Looks like we're there.
We're on screen.
We're on. Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Conant Show. And got a real special guest tonight who's one of the more erudite and fascinating people I've met in Woodstock in many, many, many years. And I met Charles and
Thank you.
His lovely wife off screen here, Doris. We got to talking over the months, and it just occurred to me, this is a really smart guy. He's got a lot to offer for our community, and I asked Charles to do a show, and that was probably about 3 or 4 months ago. He wasn't feeling so hot, and then finally I get a phone call, hey, George, I want to do the show. I said, oh, okay, so here we are.
Great.
This is Conant Show, Woodstock TV. We're going out live Wednesday, August 2nd, and 2017, and here's Charles.
Fun to be here. Thanks, George. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
I hope that introduction wasn't over the top, but I'll take it.
Hey, anything goes here.
Good.
This is live public access TV, free speech. We can talk about whatever we want. There's no censorship. Just kind of keep it clean because the kids are watching.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so when we started chit-chatting a little bit, you brought to my awareness your involvement in the healing arts,
Right.
and it's a pretty deep involvement with a knowledge base that has fascinated me for many, many years, which is the ancient Chinese medicine. The acupressure, acupuncture,
Right.
and so tonight, it was a show about healing people and healing ourselves, and you can run with it, Charles. I'm so sorry, I forgot your last name.
LaBarr.
Charles LaBarr, Conant Shows, George. So fire away.
Well, I'm not quite sure where to start because as you found out in our many discussions, it's a very dense topic. But what I would start with, you said healing, and we do call this a healing art. But the art of it is in finding the way to really mesh with a patient.
Yeah.
Somebody comes to you for help. And by the way, some people have called me a healer. I don't take that on. I consider myself a helper, and that everyone that comes through my door with a desire to feel better, to manifest themselves in a healthy way in their lives, they're the healers. Hopefully I'm a helper that has something to offer to them for their own healing process. There's this saying that comes out of Chinese medicine, and interestingly enough, I first ran across it in a fortune cookie in Manhattan, in way before I would ever consider being in a healing art myself. And I liked it so much, I'm reading this and I said, this is really cool. So I tucked it into my wallet, and I kept it. I carried it around with me for a long time. Eventually it got lost or wore out, whatever. The next time I ran across it, I was reading one of the translations of one of the Chinese medicine classics. And I think, I can't say for sure, there's one called The Classic of the Yellow Emperor, which is a teaching text where the emperor is asking his personal physician, Li Po, questions, and Li Po would answer them. And this is the way Li Po is teaching the emperor, but teaching whoever happens to be reading the treatise. And I'm flipping through the pages, and all of a sudden I turn the page, and I don't know what led up to it. I just remember turning the page, and there was the saying. Li Po was saying to the emperor, the only true healing is self-healing. So if somebody comes to me with the expectation that I'm going to be their healer, well, maybe it will still work. But it's better if they realize that I'm a helper and hopefully a teacher.
I'm just going to move this a little closer to you.
Sure.
There you go. There you go. Hold your thought.
Okay, so you just touched on something. I've mentioned this on this show before in another context, but my first real serious girlfriend, Roseanne, had a best friend, and it turned out her best friend's mom and dad were well acquainted with my mom. So there was this, kind of a familial thing, and the dad in the situation was a very, very fine artist by the name of Marvin Penny. And he was so excited about his discovery that he made with water, and how just simply, he didn't care whether tap water, bottled water, he didn't care what it was. If you just leave it out on your desk or in your kitchen in a nice sized jug and lift the top off of it, anything untoward in the water will evaporate off. And over a period of 24, 48 hours, you have a much better quality water.
Right.
This is kind of where he was coming from. But where he arrived to this is he related this story to me of one day he looks in the mirror and he sees his internal organs in the reflection. And he sees the cancers that were afflicting him. And in looking at this, he had this sort of inspiration that, okay, God's talking to me, something's going on here, this isn't normal. And he was moved to look for other solutions for a medical treatment than the standard chemotherapy, whatever. And he pursued various herbal things and stuff, and he got himself well. But then he got it in his head, well, he had this gift, so he could start seeing ailments in people. And he tells me the story. He went to the hospital, and he was just sort of like walking this, recovery ward, and he had it in his mind he was going to help somebody. And he comes into this room, and here's this old lady, and she was, sleeping, and he starts seeing into her body. And then he sees her etheric body sit bolt upright and admonish him. And she goes to him from her etheric body, "Don't you try to help me and cure me. It took me a long time to get this sick, and I'm going out." And he said it blew him right out the door, and then he had a realization, I can't help anybody. They have to want to help themselves. So exactly. I just wanted to share that with you, just to,
It's an interesting story. And that's an educational process. And one of the things that I like to tell people about, because this ties in with my own process of working with people, I often ask people, what do you think the terms medical doctor mean, literally? Now, doctor is a word that means teacher. And it kind of bothers me that our physicians have co-opted this word. So doctor, people think of, the person who dispenses medications and treatments and this sort of thing. Medical doctor literally means teacher of health. Now, I don't have allopathic physician training. I'm not a chiropractor. Chiropractors are doctors. But I take this moniker very seriously. And I think one of the most important things we have to do as practitioners of healing arts is education. And education is an interesting word also. It literally means to draw forth. Not putting anything in, that's teaching. But education means to draw forth. And inside of every sick person, there's a healthy person who wants to get out. That's how I see it. And you want to help that person to emerge. And how do you do that? You have to find a way to work with that person's own innate energies and the balance that will allow them to heal. So as a philosophy, that's a lot of where I'm coming from.
That's a really, really kind of basic, rational place to come from. I mean, it makes total sense. There's a certain amount of self-responsibility that we have to take if we're really interested in answering to that person inside who wants to be healthy.
Right.
And I've met a lot of people suffering a variety of physical ailments, but when I ask them, well, what are you thinking about? You know, where's your head at? What are you thinking about? How are you eating? Are you getting out in the sun? Do you do anything fun? You know, how, you know, and the thing is that sometimes there are junctions in our life, or junctures in our life, where, you know, it's almost insurmountable odds and challenges.
Mhm.
And so you spend all this time meeting those challenges to the deficit of your health, because you were not paying attention to love and joy, perhaps.
Which is foundational.
Yes.
You know, if you don't have that foundation, it's very tough to move anything else. I mean, and you pay a price for it, a negative price.
Right.
You know, if you don't have that, well, the place to move from has to be grounded in health. Otherwise, the things you try to do are going to suffer for it. I mean, I've seen people in pretty poor health do some amazingly good work. And I wonder to myself sometimes, what could those people do if they were in good health as well? How much more could be done? How much more can happen? I don't know. I mean, one thing that I've discovered for many, many years, even before I get into healing arts, we're complex beings.
Mm.
One of the things that keeps my life interesting is that no two people that come to me for help are the same. I could have 10 people come in with low back pain. There's going to be 10 different treatments. There are going to be a lot of things that will overlap that are similar, and you say, oh, that looks like the one you gave the other guy the other day. But ultimately, they're going to all be different.
And that's a real, very real truth that seems to get avoided when you're dealing with an allopathic system or a reductionist system, because, you know, I used to have conversations with this doctor friend and relative of mine, Irving Schwartz. And Irving's one of his credits was synthesizing an insulin that's suitable for use in the treatment of diabetes. So he's a brilliant man. And I was very much into, you know, golden seal and red clover and herbal treatments for a variety of affectations or ailments. And he was always trying to reduce it to, well, you know, let's study this plant and take it all apart in the laboratory and find the active ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always argue with him, well, it doesn't work that way. It's a whole plant. It's a whole consciousness in the plant. So the idea that the plant might have a consciousness that would relate to your ailment and adjust your psyche and spirit to moving the energy differently to deal with that ailment was very, very foreign for a scientist or a reductionist like that.
Sure. Well, I want to give allopathic medicine its due.
Yeah.
Is that it's done a pretty good job of getting us to survive a lot longer from infectious diseases and things like that. But ultimately, it comes down to this as far as I'm concerned. If somebody has pneumonia, you know, they got a really raging case of pneumonia,
Right.
I want you to go see your medical doctor
Absolutely.
and get that bug taken care of. But after you see that medical doctor, I want you to come to see me or another healing artist who works on getting your system back into balance so you don't get pneumonia again.
Yeah.
It's at that point, it's preventive. Now, there are other things that we can deal with. Acupuncture deals very, very well with a lot of body aches and pains for various reasons. I was just talking to somebody today who had gone and gotten a cortisone shot for joint pain.
Mm-hmm.
And its joint hurt worse after the cortisone shot than it
I've
did
heard
before.
that can happen.
Happens sometimes, and
Yeah.
not all the time. But he came to me, and I worked with him with the acupuncture, and he got off the table. And after he got off the table, he said, wow, boy, I can't believe it. I can hardly feel that knee now. It was so much better.
Yeah.
Well, so the cortisone shot wasn't right for that time. Another time it might have been. So there's again, we're dealing with a lot of complexity here. And simple fact of the matter is one of the things the other thing that keeps my job interesting is I'm constantly learning. There's a reason why they call healing arts practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're practicing. We don't know it all. We never will know it all. And every time you think, boy, I've got low back pain down pat, somebody's going to come in and it's going to blow that right out of the water.
Yeah, and I was actually still ruminating on my other thought just before that, which is that, you know, we're not machines.
Right.
And, you know, even though we all have the same kind of components, you know, the five senses, you know, hands and feet and forward pointing eyes and all that kind of thing, but the way our physical body responds to stimulus and the way our intellectual body responds to a variety of stimulus, that's all really, it's mysterious.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's one of the things I like. I don't think we'll ever, I don't think we'll ever solve it all in any system. There's going to be constant relearning, learning, development, exploration. Always things are new are going to pop up. I heard something once that went kind of like this. We're complex enough that if we were simple enough to understand completely, we'd be too simple to understand it. If we were simple enough to understand ourselves, we'd be too simple to understand it. So the complexity, it's like a perpetual motion machine in a way. It just keeps us going because we never get to the end of it. We never get to the end. Okay, we've got the human organism solved. We know exactly what's going on here. We can take care of everything. No, it's not going to be like that because of the variety. There's a saying I always liked in physics. It goes, nature abhors a vacuum. Well, there's something else that nature abhors when it comes to human beings, when it comes to especially living things, but all other things as well. Nature abhors duplication.
Can I explain that?
Well, you know, even when you have...
I've never heard that before, but I'm fascinated with the
even when
thought.
you have identical twins,
Yes.
there's myriad differences between them.
Like my twins. I have identical twins.
Oh, you do?
I
You
do,
have twin,
and-
two?
Well, there's
Are they
two of them, but there's one set.
Oh, okay. They're not your twins. You're related to them.
They're my
Oh.
children.
Oh, your children.
Yes, my
Oh,
daughters.
Nice.
Yeah, Nisa and Rosa.
Yeah.
And they were such identical twins that the only real differentiating thing I had to go on was a little rosy birthmark,
Mm-hmm.
which happened to be on Rosa. Which, you know, but once her hair filled in, pretty much if one did something wrong, they both got in trouble. I just blamed them both all the time. So, you know, it was kind of unfair, but it was also with a bit of humor. I mean, but what I noticed is I think looking at them carefully, you know, the tilt of the eyes were mirror. So as though they were identical twins, they were mirror images, seemingly.
Mm-hmm.
But they also reacted differently to the very, very few vaccinations that they did get.
Interesting.
Rosa's legs swelled up real bad, and I'm pretty certain it was a hot DPT shot. It was either that or the MMR. It's so long ago now because they're young ladies now with their own lives. But as identical as they were not identical, and they were they're absolutely their own personalities.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
there's proof right there.
Yeah. And
Nature does
it-
not like
it definitely
duplication.
keeps life interesting. And you know, when people get into the trap of trying to categorize people and say these kind of people are all the same, if you really look, it's never that way, ever.
No.
It just isn't. I mean, I have to watch my own mind. I try not to be judgmental about people. You know, I don't always succeed. You know, I had a mind. I've had a lot of conditioning in my life. My parents were very political in their own way, and I picked up a lot of that along the way. I make political judgments and things like this. But the simple fact of the matter is that as I learn more and more to pay attention as I get older, I find that people that I used to have judgments about, and I've been in Woodstock for 32 years now, these people I see now that I try to set these judgments aside. I don't want to have them. I don't want to carry them. I want to have my heart open to anybody that I meet. I find that the people change. Is it change? Is it my perception?
I was just going to
Maybe
ask
the
that.
fact is that I come up to the person and I don't have that judgment anymore, is that their reaction to me changes in a subtle way that neither of us wouldn't be aware of if we weren't paying attention to that. You know, it's an interesting thing that happens. And I also
you know, I
feel-
think there's something else going on there since you brought it up, and what that is you know, this subject has been touched on in other shows, and one of the things I'm looking at is the geometry of the invisible. The geometry of the invisible, and things that are invisible, like emotions and thoughts and perceptions, like you were saying, you know, carrying a notion about somebody that may or may not be true, but in any event, it colors your feeling, right? So we have these feelings, and then when we're in a room together, you know, my set of feelings, whatever they are colliding with yours. And
Right.
if we're in balance and we're in a good place emotionally, you know, then that could be a harmonious tone,
Right,
and that will fill the room.
right.
You
And a
know?
lot of cues come out of that kind of thing too.
Exactly.
Body language, how the eyes are appearing, the tone of the voice.
Yeah.
So many things come into play that we might be aware of and maybe not, but at some level, it creates a reaction in our internal spaces.
You know,
We
there,
might not even know that we're reacting to somebody in a particular way. It might just be simple. You feel like, oh, well, you know, I don't really want to talk to this person, or, oh, this person feels really attractive to me. I'm gonna engage,
right?
see what's going on.
Yeah.
When somebody comes to me for treatment, for example,
Mhm.
I try to be as open, warm, friendly, greeting, non-threatening as I can possibly be. And sometimes when somebody's coming to acupuncture for the first time, they're knowing that I've got boxes of needles in the other room. It can be a little bit of a threat anyway. They want to try it, but they're like, they're
Right.
not so sure.
Yeah.
But so I try to be as non-confrontational as possible, as welcoming as, you know, come on in, this is your space while you're here, not mine, I'm just here to help. You're in control. You know, yes and no are entirely up to you.
So in this healing work with people, you learn life lessons in a way. I imagine.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. Now, me with my builder's hat on, you know, I want to equate this to a thought. I want to see what you think about it. I was doing a stone project with incredibly large rocks so big that I didn't know how to move them 40 feet up a hill.
Mm.
Yeah, how am I going to do this? I can't just, you know, drag them with a truck because it's in a situation that I can't do that with. You know, and I ultimately ended up talking to a master of this kind of thing who said, well, you know, metal rollers and boards and come along and chain and a little bit at a time. Don't take big risks, and don't do it in snow or rain, only in dry conditions. And so I started handling these very, very, very big rocks, and they start to talk to you. You develop a relationship with, yeah, folks, rocks, you know. So and the thing is I made two errors in this particular project. One was I tried doing it on a rainy day, and with the mud and the slick, I lost control of one of these big rocks, and it nearly crushed my leg. Because you know, and the other error was, and I didn't learn this lesson quickly because I kept trying it, was, you know, little small incremental gains, and take smaller risks than trying to go, you know, 18 or 20 inches with this huge, you know, 1,800-pound rock. Go 5 inches, and then reset, and then reconnect, and then go another 5 inches. You try to go that full 20 inches, and then you lose control, it's going to slide right down the hill further than where you started. And I started thinking about this as a life lesson. And it took a long time, and I still try to rush things through, but I'm finding that I am more effective if I am less in a hurry, more deliberate, and take smaller risks. You know, get those incremental gains and hold on to them and keep moving forward. And that's kind of like how I'm now trying to apply this to my life in general.
You're making a case for minimalism, in a way. I mean, there's a saying that came out of somewhere in Chinese medicine that says, a master acupuncturist will not use 4 needles when 1 needle will do. Now, some people have taken that to mean a real master acupuncturist can treat you with just 1 needle. I don't quite.
That's not what it means.
But some people have taken it that way.
Sure.
You know, and sometimes the ideographic language, the written language of the Chinese leaves itself open to interpretations like that, because the original language is not phonetic. It's ideas that are drawn in those ideographic forms. Well, they're not actually pictograms. They're called ideograms.
Ideograms.
Because each of the parts of it contains a certain part of an idea. And, well, I'm kind of going a little bit afield here, but
No, that's fine.
the ideographic language in the texts, the meaning of a particular ideogram can be modified by its location in the text relative to other characters. You know? So it leaves it open to a wide variety of interpretations. Simple fact of the matter is that Chinese medicine is as wildly varied as allopathic medicine is, with all of its specialties to the different organs. But the way of looking at essential energy can come from many, many, many different perspectives.
Right.
You know, I've studied 5 different styles of acupuncture, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface. Because sometimes when people say to me, how many styles of acupuncture are there? I say, how many acupuncturists are there? Start there,
Right, well,
and that's gonna get close to your number, because
You grow
everybody,
with
yeah,
you
you
grow
learn,
with experience.
yes, you learn a theoretical base, and maybe a number of different theoretical bases, and then you move from there, and as you start to practice, you continue to learn, you continue to synthesize all the things that you've learned before, all the things you're learning in the moment, and it changes. And everybody's style is a little different. I've had people complain to me, says, well, that's not the way acupuncturists I saw before treated me. I said, well, I'm not that person. What can I do?
Right. It's going to be a different set of decisions.
Yeah, different set of decisions, a different approach. And then some people are surprised. They say, you know, your style was so different. I thought maybe it wasn't going to work, but then it did. I said, great. You know, and the other person's style worked too. Yeah, sure, fine. Everybody's capable of doing good work.
And I mentioned to you, you know, if you had any support documents, you know, like maybe one of those neat little charts or whatever.
Yeah,
and we went with that. But I was always kind of fascinated in looking at those charts when I would see them, you know, in a friend of mine's house or in an office or something. And, you know, I know that there is a particular, what they call meridian, from the end of the pinky finger up the left arm to the heart. And I had this experience one evening. I was just, you know, I suffered a lot of back pain, 35 years of chronic back pain from a variety of injuries. And so I would frequently spend time on the floor, just flat on the floor, no cushion or anything, just to try to straighten things out and get some relief. And so I was just in a kind of in a meditative state, and I was in the dark up in my room, and I had this sort of electric shock feeling go through my body. But in my mind's eye, I saw what looked like a lightning bolt follow that exact path from the chart, from my pinky to my heart. And I just thought that was really cool.
Well, there were some investigators, and I don't know where they were. It might have been here, it might have been China. I just remember this study from a couple of decades ago. They took some people that were artistically proficient, good at drawing, good at manifesting things that they experienced, and had never had acupuncture and didn't know anything about Chinese medical theory. They might have heard of qi, vital energy, this sort of thing, but that was about the limit of it. And what they did is they had master acupuncturists stimulate specific points on their bodies. And then if a feeling was propagated from that, they had them draw it on a line drawing of a human being. They ended up drawing the meridian system. They were point stimulated. They stimulate a point down on the ankle on a particular meridian, and they draw that meridian, and they even show energy propagating where that meridian would end up. And the interesting thing about that is that the meridians don't have a structure per se. Like people say to me, well, what is it about these meridians? I mean, you can't extract it from the body.
It's not like a specific nerve path or anything.
Right, it's not
an
like
energetic path.
Yeah, exactly. And where does that energy flow? Well, a lot of modern theorists think it follows the fascia of the muscles, basically the muscle coverings. And it's not that fine line you see on the charts.
No.
Like I say, that a chart diagramming the meridians is to the human body as a map is to the train that you're driving through. It suggests locations, suggests relationships between different locations, but it's not the exact thing. The thing is what you experience when you get to the body. And it will often be the indication or very close to it. But I see variations on the theme too, points, acupuncture points. There'll be these rigid definitions in the descriptions in the text. They'll say this point is right here. They'll say it's between certain bones, certain distance from something else. And then you go and you start to press and look for the sensitive spot, and it's not quite exactly there. It's a little bit different. And the next time you see that person, it might be a little bit different again. And sometimes it'll be right on where they say it is by the description in the books. So there's all this variation that I don't know where I was going with that.
We're skating around.
Skating and exploring.
Yeah. Well, there's for the benefit of our audience, the body electric, I guess, is a book that somebody wrote, and I haven't read it entirely yet. I've only seen snippets of it, and we're living creatures, and we have this bioelectrical energy field or energy component to our bodies, and I'd like you to share a little bit with our audience, kind of what that means health-wise. How these energies in our body, starting with really a healthy body. How do the energy, if you kind of want to.
Well, the nervous system is a biochemical, bioelectric system, and in my work, I think of it as an information system. That the brain, you want your hand to move, it sends some information to the muscles, and you move.
Yeah.
Okay. It feels something. It might be a little hot. It pulls it away. There are reactions within that system, and when you're treating somebody, essentially you're putting different information into the system. Very specifically with acupuncture, it's a very specific kind of information, and that system has to accept it and accommodate it. So sometimes people say, well, okay, you treated me today, can I come back tomorrow? Give your system a little time to accommodate the change that we're trying to encourage. So you say it's a bioelectric system, it's an energetic system. Now I'm going to really go out on a limb here. Robert Becker is the guy who wrote The Body Electric, was a medical doctor. And one of the things that he predicted in there is that eventually all medicine was going to be energetic in nature. Well, the Chinese beat him by about 3,000 years.
Yeah.
So they started talking about qi, and in effect, what you're doing with acupuncture is not manipulating, but encouraging specific kinds of changes in the way that energy moves, where it's moving, how it's manifesting. The Chinese didn't talk about biopathogens like we do, viruses, bacteria, etc. They talked about environmental factors and how those factors would seem to manifest in the body. The pathogens would be heat, cold, dampness, dryness, wind, things of this nature. And they would see patterns in the body behaving the way these forces would behave in nature. For example, heat would tend to rise. They'd have a pattern like liver fire rising. Liver is hyperactive because of being under stress for a long time, a lot of energy block, and it flares upwards. That heat comes up. So liver fire blazing upward, the heat comes up here. What does the heat do? turns your face red, dries things out, causes headache, pain, things like that. They talked about these factors energetically.
Now let me
Yes.
ask a question. So the liver heat rising
Hmm.
can be identified sort of as a rash or as a fever,
Could
and
be
then
a
the dryness. You said the dry mouth or the
dry mouth, dry eyes,
Dry eyes.
ringing in the ears, tension in the jaw, any number of
Really?
things. Yeah,
And that could be-
flushed face.
and that could be a liver issue.
Could be liver, could be stomach, could be anything down here that's overheated and sending energy upwards.
Okay.
You know, and so it might tend to follow particular pathways and manifest in particular kinds of ways. How did I get onto that? I
Well,
mean, this there's
about the body
so
electric,
much here.
well, that's why we do these
Yeah.
shows.
So Robert Becker said, future medicine was going to be energetic, and you think about it. I've been doing a lot of reading in particle physics and in the nature of what we think of as objective reality, the things that we can touch, the thing that we are.
Right.
A medical doctor named Robert Lanza wrote a book. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Let's see if it'll come back to me. But he was talking about the fact that all of the things that we think of as matter and solid things are mostly space. That if you take all of the particles in the body
Right.
and pack them together, so all the spaces out of all of the atoms in the body so that they can touch, you would have an object you probably couldn't see. You couldn't
yes.
see. Okay. So what else is there? What organizes all this stuff? It's got to be energy. Where does that energy come from? Well, you'll ask a religious person, you get an answer. You ask a physicist, you get an answer. That they may sound far afield from each other, but they probably aren't. There's really some kind of unifying energy that holds all of this together.
I was asked by my twins one day when we were taking a walk, looking at flowers and stuff on a nice sunny day by the Housatonic River in Connecticut, and this kind of a subject came up, and they were real little. I mean, they were maybe 5 years old, and I love that age because their minds are just so lightning fast
And open, yes.
and open. And one of them says, Daddy, what is everything made out of? And what is everything made out of? And I was sort of, wow, what a fascinating question,
Mhm.
And I said, well, it all comes down to electricity. Everything's electrons. Well, what does that mean? And I said, well, you asked me what's everything's made out of, and mostly it's, if you take whether it's a lightning bolt in the sky or a tree branch, if you go to the substance, smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't even see what it is that you're looking at anymore, and take that apart, at the bottom of it, the scientists are telling us it's all electrons. Everything's made, matter is mostly space at that point.
Yeah, and
As we were just saying.
electrons can be photons as well, which is light.
Which is light. So we're really, I said, we're all, how did I put it to them? I said, matter is different speeds of light.
I
is
like
what was
that. Yeah,
kinda saying
that
to
works.
them. And what was really great is they were like, oh, okay. That was just really kind of easy for them to
Well, you want to go a little
accept.
further into the physical/metaphysical.
Sure.
Going back a few decades, there were a couple of books that were very strong influences on me. One was The Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra, and the other one was The Dancing Wu-Li Masters by Gary Zukov. They were similar in this regard, is that both of them were comparing modern scientific findings, the expressions of modern scientific findings, with expressions about the nature of reality from old spiritual textbooks like the Bhagavad Gita, for example. But the one thing that stuck to me more than anything else is, and I don't remember which book it was in, and it might not have even been in both of those, but it might have been something similar. In any case, a theoretical particle physicist was being interviewed. And he said, if you ask me about the nature of reality, I'd have to say that the deeper I go into trying to understand reality at its core, the more the universe appears to resemble a great thought. That's from a scientist, theoretical particle physicist. So that opens up a lot of other things. I mean, there are a lot of scientists that are trying to study the process of thought and thinking. You know, how does that work? How do those energies work? And they're finding that it seems to resemble the way the universe works. That an idea could be thought of as a nova.
And I wish I could remember the issue and the writer. It was an Omni magazine. It was like 1984. I can't remember. Maybe October of '84. I can't remember exactly.
Had to be 1984, huh?
Or '82,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. But it was a great article, and what it was discussing is just this kind of thing where the problem of if you can think it, you can make an experiment that will make it happen or prove it.
Mm.
And even if there is some other guy thinking diametrically opposed that would disprove your experiment, could devise an experiment and prove his thought, to prove his
Mm-hmm. Prove his theory, huh?
his theory.
Hmm.
So you could have completely contradictory proofs existing simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
And the end of the article basically goes, and what we learn from this is that if you can think it up, it can probably exist.
Yeah, well, it also goes to, I don't want to get too far into Heisenberg and the uncertainty principle,
Uh-huh.
but one of the things that has been discovered and explored extensively over the years is the fact that in certain complex experiments, the intention and the ideation of the experimenter affects the outcome.
Absolutely.
And you may be using the exact same equipment to approach the problem as somebody else. And there's been a huge amount of work that has gone into, say, working with the big super collider over in Switzerland.
Right.
Is to get the person's predilections about the experiment out of the way, to come up with something that was really objective reality, and there may not be any. Ultimately.
Precisely.
There may not be any.
There might
I
not.
don't know. You know, how that affects me in healing arts is I say, well, sometimes I do something that my ideation about it, my intention, goes in a certain direction, and something completely different happens. I have to be open to that.
Yeah.
And how did my spaces affect that, and how did the thinking of the patient affect it?
It all does. That's the whole. It's
absolutely.
It's a synergy.
It certainly
of,
does.
Of all of that interaction and thought. So, with our a little more than 15 minutes left, I want to get into the beamer. Is that what it's called?
Oh, we're going to go into energy now.
The energy thing. Yeah, I mean we've been talking about energy. So.
Well, this is the device that I have. I'm in the process of integrating into my practice.
Uh-huh.
Beamer is not a BMW. It's not somebody who worked for IBM in the past.
Uh-huh.
In this case, it stands for Bioelectric Magnetic Energy Regulation. Beamer, B-E-M-E-R. There are many devices that of this similar nature, but this one is kind of the top of the line. This is the big dog in the fight. The idea with it is that through electromagnetic pulsed radiation, that you can enhance circulation, enhance cardiac function, improve energy, improve cognition, and I won't say more than that, though a lot more happens, because these are the things that the FDA says we can say about it. That if you get involved with the process of using a beamer, that these are the kind of things that you can count on happening for you.
Uh-huh.
Now, when it comes to circulation, one of the things that acupuncture does, through the process of relaxation and probably a lot of processes that maybe we could describe and maybe we couldn't, that it does enhance circulation, it enhances, experience have shown that it enhances the function of neurotransmitters, things like this. Better transmission of nerve signals, nerve pathways. This particular device has been shown to improve circulation, especially at the capillary level. And you think about it, our capillaries make up 75% of our circulatory system.
Pretty
And that's
important.
about, in the average person, it's about 74 to 76,000 miles of vessels. And a lot of
You
them,
gotta say that for our people again.
Yeah.
Just in
70
your average human body out there, folks, there's these little blood vessels called capillaries that if you stretch them all out end to end are
74 to 76,000 miles of them in your body. And
that's three times around the circumference of the earth.
Yeah, at least. And
Wow.
that is 75% of your circulatory system. Now, here's someone, if someone wants to go on their computer and take a look at something, go on YouTube and look up Beamer blood flow.
Spell that.
BEMER, blood flow. I don't have to spell them, do I?
No,
Hopefully not.
no, it'll pop right up.
Take a look. It's a 2.5-minute video that'll blow your mind. You can see what happens in an 8-minute session on the Beamer, what it does for circulation. And basically what I say to people, well, so what's that good for? I say, think about it. Is there anything related to health that could not be improved by better circulation? Anything at all? Because what you're
No.
doing is better transport and delivery of oxygen, nutrients, better transport away of waste, metabolic waste products and carbon dioxide. At its simplest. It also enhances cardiac function. And so many people are having trouble with heart issues because of
Restricted blood vessels.
diet, lack of exercise, and of course, and circulatory restriction. So if you can get the circulation working better, everything gets better. Now, this is not about curing diseases. It is about, for me, is about improving the effectiveness of my acupuncture treatments, because somebody comes to me for an acupuncture treatment, if they so desire, they get a Beamer session as well. And I've noticed that the efficacy of the treatments is improving. People are relaxing better. People are just feeling better. I mean, I have people coming back to me and saying, wow, that was a really interesting, I just felt so good, like that was just wonderful. And I get that from just acupuncture alone as well, but I'm finding I'm getting it more now
with the
with the
Beamer
Beamer,
treatments.
including it in there.
I also would like you to speak to a little bit about this is this time of year, where the pollen is beating people up, and but it's not just pollen. There's animal dander. There's all kinds of reactive substances out there that cause a great deal of suffering for people, and this is in the land of allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also real interested in, we didn't get to touch on too much of this in our conversations in the past, but you did mention allergies, and my very dear significant other friend suffers allergies from time to time. And it seems to come almost cyclically, and sometimes it's even time of day, where it's worse than other times of day. And I know it's like, I'm not asking you to diagnose anything, but in a broad stroke terms, what have you kind of discovered along the way of the land in the lay of the land of allergies and
I'm glad you asked. I in my practice I do something that's called advanced allergy therapeutics, that to pique people's interest. The foundational root of this is that most allergies and sensitivities, and most of the things that we have, are not true allergies because they don't involve the immune system directly, but have similar symptoms to allergies or sensitivities. Most of these things are mistakes in perception in the system. Basically, the system is having an inappropriate reaction to essentially harmless substances, namely good nutritious foods. different proteins and things floating around in the air. And these proteins and enzymes and so forth are complex. Sometimes our bodies have a little trouble dealing with them, but generally they're thought to be inappropriate. And why do they develop in the first place? Well, there can be any number of reasons. Trauma is a big one. Stress is a big one. Stress in the broadest sense of it can be an illness, an injury. Sometimes a stressor for somebody. I've had people tell me that they had an allergy develop after they moved from a house they'd been in for 15 or 20 years to a new house.
That's a big deal.
But the house itself wasn't loaded with allergens. They became sensitive to things because of the stress of the change. Sometimes change itself is stressful. A broken relationship, somebody passes away, any number of things. Birth trauma. I had a little kid come to me, who was brought to me by his parents, who was allergic to 35 plus foods. And the mom couldn't even eat the foods because she was breastfeeding the child, and the child would react to what was expressed in the breast milk. So she had to only eat the things that her child was able to eat. So
Wow.
it got pretty intense. So basically what we do is we try to discover, put as fine a point as possible on what the person is reacting to, what this inappropriate reaction is. And basically while they're being exposed to a digitized signal of the particular allergen, and I'll get into a little detail with that in a moment, then we do an acupressure-based technique. No needles, this is non-invasive process. We do an acupressure-based technique on the spine that in effect re-educates the system.
Aha.
So basically while they're being exposed to the signal of the thing that they've been allergic to, is that it says to the system, you don't have to have this ridiculous reaction to this anymore. You can let it go,
Aha.
leave it alone. Why that works, I don't know. There are certainly mysteries in all of this stuff. I'm really not sure. But I've seen it work time and time again for everything from animals to pollens to foods to all kinds of things. And the system itself is about 85% effective. And can I give a little plug here?
Sure, fire
You know,
away.
I work part-time at Woodstock Healing Arts, which is a new healing arts center down behind the Bank of America in Bradley Meadows. And a week from tonight, from 7 to 8:30, I'm going to be giving a talk and a demonstration of this system. People wanna come
Give the
down and check
date.
it out.
Give the date, because this
It
will
is-
go into
it-
rotation.
Yeah, it is April 9th. April, the other A, August. Oh, boy.
August 9th.
August 9th, Wednesday night from 7 to 8:30 at Woodstock Healing Arts, behind Bank of America down in down
And
Bradley
you will
Meadows.
be,
I will be there. I will be giving a talk about this, question and answer, and a demonstration of the process, so people can actually see how it works. I'll be looking probably for a volunteer. I might bring one with me, but somebody that hopefully has some kind of fairly simple process, like one thing that they're sensitive to, or maybe two, and but somebody that I will work with, and so they can actually see how the process develops. Now, it's an interesting thing along this line. In the Science Times, this is probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and I wish I had saved the article. There was an article about allergies and new findings on it. These were from allopathic physicians that were starting to come around to this idea. One of the things they said in the article, which nearly knocked me off my feet, they said, yeah, we're kind of taking a look at this as a mistaken perception in the system. I said, whoa. They weren't talking about biochemistry or anything like that, about throwing medicines out. They were thinking about, well, we have to find ways to correct that perception. Well, we already have ways of doing that.
this is a regular allopathic doctor speaking.
Yes, that was our allopathic doctor.
that-
These were allergy specialists, allopathic allergy specialists, that were
Saying that-
saying what we've been saying all along, that it's a mistaken perception in the system. And we have ways of correcting those perceptions. Now, if people want to, if you want to look this up for yourself, and you can do this, there's a very simple web address. It's, of course, www. The word allergy and the letters T and X. And TX is medical shorthand for treatment. So allergytx.com. Go and have a look.
Fascinating.
I mean, you will be fascinated.
Real quickly here, you just touched on another part of my life here that is real interesting, and that was I was caretaking an elderly dentist who had become infirmed with Parkinson's.
Mm.
And Dr. Geller and I really got along great. We became very good friends, and I actually, kind of got very angry that the registered nurses weren't doing anything with him physical therapy-wise to get him up and moving out of the bed, so he became bedridden. And while I was involved with that family for over a year, my first 3 weeks was pumping his legs and making the blood flow, and then standing him up and getting him to walk in the walker again. And so that's kind of how I began my relationship with him. But what was really interesting is he was in dentistry school in the 1930s in Pittsburgh Dentistry School. I guess it's a famous one. And at that same time, he got real interested in the work of Mesmer and other hypnotists. And so he got involved with hypnosis as another avenue for anesthetic. And I got a fabulous dissertation from him one day on the whole premise of hypnosis. That it is not, you can't mind control somebody. Hypnosis is not anything like that. It's all about suggestion and consent. And that you make a suggestion, and not only does the person consciously consent to it, but physiobiologically consents to the suggestion. And so his greatest success rate, which was above 85% was with children. Because their acceptance of a suggestion and consenting to the suggestion on a energetic level or a body perception level,
Right.
he would say, oh, hi Johnny, how you doing today? Let's take a look at your mouth there, and he'd just go tap his cheek or something and say, oh, it's just numb now, right? So it was that fast. He said he created a technique where the suggestion wouldn't be this big, long, repetitive thing. It was just a simple suggestion, and then Johnny would go, oh my gosh, I can't feel my... Then he'd go and he'd do a little work on the tooth. He said, about 85% of the time with kids, no anesthetic was needed. As they got older, maybe a less anesthetic than normally would be needed. And he said the toughest, though, were the adults. And he said the success, real qualified success rate with the adults, fell down to about maybe 15 to 30% of the time. He'd have a good adult that could work with the hypnosis and not have any Novocaine. And
Another
what do you think of that? What do you think of that little...
It's another mysterious process.
But is there perhaps some kind of relationship to what you're doing with this perception of something that the body is reacting to?
Could be. I mean, you brought up something very interesting. I never thought along the lines of having a relationship to hypnotic process, mesmerizing process, power of suggestion. There may be something to that.
He was adamant. It was more about consent. So I sometimes I talk to different people about giving permission. Right. For example, we have these terrible problems in the world, and the individual feels powerless.
Right.
And I had this really very good native friend up north, my friend Lloyd. And Lloyd says, look, they got the guns, they got the armies, they've beaten us physically. The only way to beat them is spiritually, and that's by not giving permission, no matter what.
Good point.
So in our minds, we don't give permission, and if enough of us don't give permission to something, it does jam it up eventually. But relative to our conversation, perhaps it's like getting our body electrics to permit or consent to a healthier paradigm.
It could be that, but I'll tell you just a quick story. I mean, I treated a golf pro down in Florida, and I was still in school. I was down there visiting some friends, and I met this golf pro, and he was afraid he was going to have to give up his profession. He no way wanted to come and get acupuncture, but his wife told him basically, you're going to go and see Charles and get acupuncture, or you're out the door. I'm
Yeah.
out the door. So he came, and this guy was so tight I could have bounced quarters off of him. I mean, he was just, you know, he had this
Wound right up.
plastered grin on his face, and I'm here, and he told me straight up, he said, I don't want to be here. You know, he was utterly resistant to what I was doing. But some level, he probably wanted to get better, and I gave him a treatment, and he was 75% better after the treatment than my best friend. He was telling everybody about it. He was calling up doctors that he knew in the area. I met this guy, he's an acupuncturist, he's taking care of my back problem that you've been working on, nothing else. You know, it was just really remarkable. So sometimes cooperation and belief and surrender, all of these things can help, but sometimes great things can happen in spite of resistance. So again,
well, sometimes you know we're saying one thing but wanting another. Is kind of where that is. So there's
sure
a conflict.
There's any number of ways of looking at that and saying, you know, it's just whatever.
Yeah.
And the learning process just goes on and on. I mean, I sometimes, somebody will come into me, something I've never had come into my practice before, and all of a sudden I'm back to first day of school again. Oh my God, how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah.
You know, it happens sometimes, and it's wonderful. I invite those kind of things when they happen. I say, wow, this is really interesting.
So we just killed an hour. It went
Well,
by quick.
Oh, I hope it's still breathing, you know, even
Yeah,
when we
we just
killed it.
poor hour.
It's lovely. It was wonderful
Charles
to be here.
LaBarr, Woodstock Healing Arts.
Blessings to all, and Woodstock Acupuncture Center, my 2 locations.
Okay.
Yeah, Woodstock,
Where are those 2 locations?
Woodstock Acupuncture Center is on Oriole Drive in my home.
Okay.
It's if you look at acupuncturewoodstock.com, you'll find that. And I work part-time at Woodstock Healing Arts behind Bank of America in Bradley Meadows. And you can find that by looking at woodstockhealingarts.com.
All right, and there's
Wonderful websites, a lot of information.
And your presentation is August 9th, Wednesday
At 7 o'clock,
7 o'clock.
7 to 8:30, and I'm doing a presentation on August 26th, Saturday, about the Beamer. We're going to have several Beamers on site so people can try it out for themselves, and we're going to have question and answer.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my joy.
been
My
fun.
joy. It's really good. So everybody, that was a really fast hour and a lot of jam-packed information with our own Charles LaBarr here in Woodstock, Woodstock Healing Arts, and Woodstock
Acupuncture
and
Center.
Woodstock Acupuncture Center. You know, check it out, see how it is. Check out Charles's presentations, and thank you for watching Woodstock's TV here. And this is Conant Show signing off, and I hope everybody has a really great week, and I'll see you next week.
Cool.
All right?
Thanks.
I gotta shut stuff off.